Hi, we're a couple of mangoes, and today we're going to be talking about The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger.
So, Catcher in the Rye is about a 16-year-old kid named Holden Caulfield. Uh, he attends an elite private school at Pensy Prep, which is in Pennsylvania. And since the story is told through his perspective, we can hear all his thoughts about various things in the world. And right away, we find out that he's failing his classes and was kicked out of Pensy Prep. And Pensy Prep is like the third or fourth school that he's been kicked out of. And we find out that Holden is kind of like an outcast, kind of. And he needs to go home. So before he goes home, he realizes that he wants to go to New York City and have some fun before dealing with the fallout from telling his parents. So he books a train to New York City, and then for the rest of the book, he has various interactions with different characters in different places. And during these interactions, he reflects on what's happened into his life. Like, we found out that his brother died of leukemia. He was potentially sexually assaulted by older people. He's dealing with depression. And overall, when he kind of goes on these rants, which makes him think that he's a madman, or he calls himself a madman. And at the end of the book, you can't help but feel some sympathy over the trauma that Holden is had to deal with, and how the actions and his thoughts in the book are a result of him trying to cope with everything that's happened in his life.
So, what would you rate this book out of 5?
I would rate it a 4 out of 5 right now, but I do plan on going back into the book and rereading it because I feel like I didn't completely comprehend everything, and I just have a feeling that once I do that, it'll be a 5 out of 5 for me.
For me, it's already a 5 out of 5. I thought it was a perfect book, and there's nothing I would have changed about it.
Really?
Yes.
So, we know that Catcher in the Rye is a very polarizing book, and I think the reason why is because of Holden himself. Like I said before, Holden can be very abrasive, and he can be very judgmental, and because it's a first person narrative, we can hear his judgments on people's personalities and their tastes. And if they're hypocritical, he calls them phonies, and he just manages to explain situations in a way that's very humorous and can kind of make him seem like a jerk. But I think that's the reason why some people just really don't like him. But on the other hand, there are people that can really sympathize with this situation and just take into context everything that he's gone through and just see him as a very sympathetic figure, a sad figure that hopefully he can turn it around because he's still 16 after all. What do you think?
Well, I really love Holden Caulfield as a character, and I think that he's very empathetic, really compassionate, sensitive, pure-hearted, and maybe it's easy to kind of not see that when he can be kind of judgmental and cynical and angsty, but really, when you look at the core of the stuff he says, it matters a lot to him that people are authentic and that people are kind. And a lot of his maybe harshness comes from the fact that he's trying to navigate this world where he feels like it's a bunch of phonies and mean people. And that's something that really bothers him.
Yeah, and I just want to state that with Holden, it seems like actions really matter more than words, because no matter how many thoughts, negative things he says about the people he's interacting with, he was the person himself that invited them to hang out with him. And he does say that when they're gone, he misses them. And he must be a pleasant enough person where people want to keep on hanging out with him. There were some situations within the book that aren't very clear on what exactly happened. And one of those situations was when he was talking to his mentor slash teacher, former teacher at another school. He goes over to his house when he's in New York City and just starts talking to him. And the teacher lets him sleep there, and he wakes up because he realizes that the teacher is stroking his hair, and then he takes it like completely the wrong way and says that kind of implies that the teacher has some negative intentions and he runs away. So I was just wondering how you interpreted it.
Well, at first, I just kind of gave the teacher the benefit of the doubt, and I was like, okay, that's possible that the teacher feels for Holden. Obviously, Holden just got expelled from yet another school. The teacher is there to be supportive and gave him sound life advice, and then let Holden pass out on his couch. And I thought it was believable that the teacher feels for Holden and just affectionately stroked his hair. But I guess after talking to you about it more, the teacher is only a little bit older than DB, Holden's brother. So there's not much of an age gap there, and I feel like that makes it a little bit weird where it doesn't really feel like a teacher student relationship, especially since Holden isn't like a kid, he's 16. What did you think about it?
I mean, I took it the way Holden did. I just thought that a young man stroking my hair while I'm sleeping on their couch is really weird. And I thought that it was just a, you just don't want to be in that situation no matter what. And I interpreted it exactly the way Holden did. I mean, at the afterwards, Holden does regret that he left like that. But I think he's just dealt with so much. I can understand why he interpreted it like that.
Yeah, what do you think was the significance of that scene?
I think either way, it's just Holden has been dealt a bad hand, and even if it was genuine affection, it just tells how Holden reacted, that Holden just can't trust many people and that many people have not been good to him.
So you saying that Holden was dealt a bad hand, that reminds me of a common criticism of Holden that he's like a snotty rich kid, but it's hard for me to understand that criticism because at the end of the day, Holden has had a brother who died. Holden witnessed a fellow student commit suicide, and he apparently had people make perverted advances towards him a lot. So, I mean, all those things combined, even if he were a rich kid, can you really say like he's all that privileged? Like he's been through a lot of traumatizing stuff.
Yeah, and he never talks about how being rich makes him better. He just mentions that he's has to live towards a certain standard, especially when he's sent to these prep schools. And for someone that's dealt with so much trauma and just wants like attention and like companionship, he just that environment is not conducive to recovering from stuff like that. And to write him off as like a really privileged, snotty kid is just cruel, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that reminds me, like, you can compare him to the other kids at the prep school who are also rich and privileged. Like, when he talks about the oral composition class, and one kid would kind of go off tangents. Like, but he was really excited going off on tangents, and the purpose of the class was for the kids to say digression whenever someone went off topic, like the speaker went off topic. But, like, Holden wouldn't go, like, digression, digression. And his whole thing was, like, if someone is excited when they're talking about something, like you shouldn't stop that. And I feel like that was another example of him showing compassion when the other kids weren't.
Yeah, I agree. And hopefully by the end, I'm hoping that after the events in the book, Holden was able to deal with his trauma and be surrounded by people that care about him. It really does sound like that, doesn't it?
I just worry because I feel like we don't know enough about the parents. And to me, like, the ending is a little bit open-ended because, like, Holden himself is like, people ask me, am I gonna finally apply myself in school? And he's like, it's one of those things where you don't know if you will or if you won't until you actually do or don't do it. So I kind of saw it as a little more open-ended, but at the end of the day, like the fact that he did choose to stay, maybe just for like Phoebe's sake, I still saw that as a good sign. What about you?
I think it's a good sign, and maybe his parents shouldn't send him off to prep school. Maybe he should just live at home and go to like the local public school. I
Yeah.
feel like he's the kind of person that needs his parents and his little sister with him. Yeah.
What did you think about his little sister Phoebe?
I loved his little sister Phoebe. Phoebe's great, and Holden tells us that Phoebe's great. And it's funny because Phoebe goes on the same rants that Holden does, but you actually hear her say it out loud compared to Holden, where he says that he won't sometimes because he's yellow. What did you think about Phoebe?
I liked Phoebe a lot, and I feel like Phoebe has so much love for Holden, and I think it's kind of good almost for the reader to see Holden kind of in the way Phoebe sees Holden. Like, she can tell he's a great guy, it's just he's struggling, and I mean, she even wanted to run away with him.
Yeah.
And it's just those scenes that always be the most heartwarming, because it's like moments where Holden actually has true connection with someone.
Yeah.
And you can tell Holden's just so in love with Phoebe and how he thinks so highly of her, and he's like, when something is good, like Phoebe knows it's good. When something's all right, like Phoebe will let you know it's all right. Like she has she knows what's going on.
Yeah. Well, this is what's all from the mangoes, and hope you see us in the next video. All right, bye.